If you watched my video on Pokemon graphics, then you know I talked about the Pokemon cycle. And there's another one that I want to talk about today. It's a question that a lot of people have asked: when did Pokemon peak? For some, it was Gen 4. For some, it was Gen 5. And nowadays, people are saying it's Gen 6. It's just another one of those cycles that keep going on. But today, class, I'm letting you know when Pokemon peaked, because I have figured it out. I've gone through all the generations, looked at everything from every conceivable angle, and I have figured it out. And I'm going to let you know. Drum roll, please. Never. Pokemon has yet to peak. Now, some of you are probably saying, well, how is that possible? I mean, a lot of these games are great. That is true. A lot of these games are great, but they're also very flawed. I mean, we all know Game Freak. We all know how they make games, how they're rushed a lot these days, and how they weren't technically sound a lot in the old days. They all had problems. Like, I can praise each generation for a lot of different things, but I can also criticize them for a bunch of different things. There is no perfect Pokemon game, nowhere near close. None of them are near perfection, not at all. And if you can't do that, if you can't say that one is just so marginally better than all the others, then a series hasn't peaked. That's just logic. I know everyone has their preferences. Some people, like I said for them it was Gen 4, but Gen 4 is incredibly flawed. Some people say it was Gen 5, but Gen 5 is also incredibly flawed. Just, they're all flawed. They're all, good in their own ways, too. Even generations like Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield have some good things going for them, but they also, again, have a lot of bad things going for them. And even the ones that are really praised, like, Gen 2 or Gen 3 and 4 or whatever, they all have their own baggage. They're old. They have a lot of the old problems. A lot of the newer ones, while they have their own problems, they have a lot more conveniences and stuff like that. Random encounters aren't as big of a thing anymore. There's no more HMs, stuff like that. Like, take my personal favorite generation, which is Gen 3. That is incredibly flawed because it's old. It has HMs, which I don't like. I wish we could have like a remake of Ruby and Sapphire where there were no HMs, and no random encounters and stuff like that, because going back and playing the old games, because I do love going back and playing the old games, they're really inconvenient a lot of the times. Pretty much any generation before Sun and Moon are incredibly hard for me to play because of the random encounters and of the HMs. Especially with Pokemon games these days not having HMs and not having, they do have random encounters, but you can see the Pokemon, and stuff. And so, there's that baggage there. It's like, they were great for their time, but, more time goes on, especially if some of these get remakes and stuff, although the Gen 4 remakes were terrible. But, it does highlight some problems. Now, again, like I said, everyone has their preferences. Some people like random encounters. Some people don't mind the HM so much. It all comes down to personal preference, which is why there's always this cycle, because everyone has their own opinion. But again, no generation stands above all of them. Not at all, because they're just all so flawed. And here's the thing, this may sound incredibly cynical, but I don't think Game Freak wants Pokemon to peak. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, if you made a Pokemon game that has everything that everyone loves, where do you go from there? How do you top that? See, here's the problem with peaking. When you peak, the only place you have to go is down. That's the definition of peaking. You reach the top, and now you can't go any higher. It's all downhill from here. So I don't think people should look at peaking as this good thing. People saying, oh, this was the peak of this or that. It's like, well, then shouldn't it stop? If Pokemon peaks, shouldn't it have stopped? That would mean that if you do think it peaked with Gen 4, then it's been going downhill for years. And I know some people do actually say that, but I don't think it's all bad. There's been some innovations and stuff, and there's some gimmicks that I like, some gimmicks that I don't like. And that's the thing. I think Game Freak is just more interested in just trying to do some new stuff every new generation. There's always a new gimmick, which only half the fan base seems to like. And that's just kind of what they're doing. I mean, why would Pokemon want to peak when they're doing so good at the mid-tier? They haven't climbed the mountain. They haven't gotten to the summit, the peak of the mountain. They've set up camp, halfway up the mountain, and they're fine where they are. They're making money. Why do they have to go to the peak? Why do they have to chase that, summit? They can just be right here. They're perfectly comfortable where they are. And, who can blame them? They can go on chasing that peak for eternity if they wanted to. I mean, why bother peaking or anything like that, you know? Like I said, that's very cynical on my part, but, you know, if you're looking at it from a business perspective, which obviously Pokemon is a business, it's the highest grossing franchise on the planet, it's a business, why wouldn't they do this? You know, they've been doing it for years. That's obviously their plan, you know? So, sadly, I don't think Pokemon is ever going to peak. I don't think we're ever going to get that truly amazing Pokemon game that we all have in our heads because they don't want to make it. I've said this before. They don't want to make it because why would they? They're doing fine just where it is. They're the biggest money-making franchise on the planet. They don't need to do anything else. They can just keep doing what they're doing and people will still go for it. And of course, people always have the argument of when did it peak? But like I said, I have the answer. Never did. Never peaked. It never will. You just enjoy the games that you like. You know? And that's what I'm going to do. I've always said before, I'm just going to continue to enjoy these games. I don't have high expectations. I'm not expecting the world. I'm just expecting to hopefully have a little fun. Maybe it be a bit different than the last one. And just try to enjoy it, you know? I don't expect amazing things from this company. I can't, you know? It's shown that it never wants to peak. You know, I've never gotten that Pokemon game that I was like, yes, this is it. I don't need any other Pokemon game, you know? I'm always like, no, these things could be better. This could be done better, you know? There's so many things that could be improved on, you know? And I think we're always going to be like that. It's just the way Pokemon operates. So, that's the answer. We don't have to think about it anymore. I have provided you the answer. You are welcome, class. Class is dismissed.